So, according to Joe Biden, the pandemic is over. Here's the US president speaking to 60 Minutes.
The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it. But the pandemic is over.
That sparked pushback from both sides of the aisles, and White House aides have scrambled to contain the fallout. One saying there's no change in COVID policy and the public health emergency remains in place through at least October 13th. But Republican leaders in Congress say the president's remarks will make approval for additional COVID relief funding more difficult. Joining us now is Eric Topol, Executive Vice President of Scripps Research. He is also a cardiologist and professor of molecular medicine. Good to see you again.
Thanks, John. Good to be with you.
So looking at the numbers, just the numbers, new cases continue to fall. The number of in-hospital deaths is down dramatically from just over 15% when the Delta variant was dominant, slightly above 5% now with Omicron. The stock market certainly took notice of what the president said. Vaccine maker Moderna's stock dropped amid President Biden signaling an end to the COVID pandemic. All these factors which support a claim that the pandemic is done. The problem is, it seems, there's no internationally agreed to definition or criteria, which sort of means it's open to interpretation.
Right, John. Well, I think the best way to consider if we're going to have the pandemic pronounced as over, it would mean that we've contained the virus, and they wouldn't have 400 to 500 Americans dying every day for the last 6 months. And you wouldn't have millions of new infections each month. And we have absolutely no way to counter long COVID, transmission, infections. We're not set now to get containment of the virus. The virus is just keeping its evolutionary arc, and it's getting more formidable. And we already know of some tough variants on the horizon, which are already in the United States over the 1% level, and they're going to grow exponentially.
Well, one thing is for certain is that the coronavirus isn't going anywhere. And this is from a CNN opinion piece. As we near the end of the third pandemic year, the accuracy of most prognostications has been dreadful. The coronavirus always seems to be several steps ahead of our understanding despite our best attempts. And while we may have the upper hand right now in terms of vaccines and better treatments, how quickly could that change?
Well, the good part here is that we're in descent of this really tough BA.5 wave. We're going to have several weeks, even a couple of months, where it's going to be relatively quiescent. But we know there's going to be another wave following this, the inevitability of these even more immune evasive variants. We're staring at those right now. So our vaccines may not hold up as well against variants that are very different, very challenging. And we aren't doing well in getting boosters, at least in Americans. We're half the rate of boosters of every other rich country in the world here. And the most vulnerable people, the people over age 50, only 1 in 4 have had a 4th shot, which is essential. It's life-saving, prevents hospitalizations and severe COVID. So we're vulnerable, not in the next several weeks when things are looking favorable. It's after that. And we haven't gone after the things that could really secure the exit of the pandemic, like the nasal vaccines, like the pan-sarcovirus vaccines. We're just not taking aggressive steps to get ahead of the virus when we have the opportunity.
This is interesting because the WHO boss, the Director General, essentially said the pandemic was, well, the end of the pandemic was in sight. Here he is.
We have never been in a better position to end the pandemic. We're not there yet, but the end is in sight.
He had an extra element of caution there, but talking about the pandemic in terms of winning a race or a wartime victory, is that appropriate in the sense that, we probably need to learn to coexist with the virus rather than defeating it all out together, right?
Right. Well, there isn't any uniform definition of what is the end of a pandemic. How is it defined? It's only really defined when you look backward and you say, hey, we went several months and things were, in good shape. We had some outbreaks, but, we didn't lose a lot of people and we didn't have monstrous number of infections. So you can't make the definition and proclamation ahead of it. You have to achieve that. The other thing, Dr. Tedros, who is, I think, right about the end is in sight, but that could be a year from now. It's in sight only because we've built an immunity wall from so many infections, so many vaccines and boosters. And of course, as you mentioned, John, we have better treatments than we had before. But the key here is to the point when we achieve containment, how many more people are going to get hurt? How many are going to suffer or die? That's what we should be doing, is countering that rather than just letting more bad things happen between now and whenever that phase is when we really do achieve containment of the virus.
Good point to finish on, Doctor. Thank you very much, Dr. Eric Topol.
Thank you, John. Always good to talk to you.